Hey Josh. Hi Anthony. So I had an idea for a movie. Oh, nice. Let's hear it.
So I had this idea for a movie, and it'll be a horror movie. And I was thinking like a monster horror movie. That's all I've got.
Well,
but it's a good start.
It's an excellent start.
So maybe the monster's probably a crustacean, a crab, apex predator. It's called Apex Predator. That's probably a movie already.
Let's call it the wet predator.
The wet predator. Do you know crabs? So many over history, so many different species of animals have actually evolved into crabs.
Really?
It's really interesting and weird. So that's why they're
they're the wet predator. They're the wet predator.
And these crabs have a taste for human flesh, and they're big. They're big boys, as big as a Corolla.
So is this an entire population of crabs? Perhaps are they on an island where they hadn't been before? Because there's a great John Wyndham book about on an island full of spiders that just attack the shit out of people. And so it could be like that, but it's an island that's populated by a coconut crab of some kind that's just insatiable desire to consume human flesh.
So we've got maybe a shipwreck, and these a dozen people are trapped on an island with the wet predators.
Yeah. So are we setting? Is this modern times, or are we
maybe a little bit in the future? I want to say 2025.
Okay. Oh my God. So yeah. So this potential that this boat that's been shipwrecked was covered in solar panels.
Yeah, and it's got an anime hologram butler.
Yeah. And can we have at least one cast member that's straight though? Can we do that?
The crab.
There's more than one crab though.
Yeah, well, that's where it gets interesting. There's one big crab, and then it turns out that this one big crab was made up of thousands of little crabs, like a Power Rangers robot, and they all merged together to make the wet predator.
So we're going to have obviously the part of the film is that we see this big crab. We see it's do some certain things. We don't see all of it, and some people, we see people seeing it and going like
Jaws.
Oh, before they die and they get eaten or whatever.
Yeah.
And in the end, and we assume it's one big crab, and then but then we see lots of other small crabs that attack them later on, and we're like, what's going? It confuses the audience, but obviously, there's a super wet predator.
Yeah. Oh, that's the sequel, I think, as well. We can get into that later. But
no, let's do it now.
What's fascinating to me is the anime butler. Every time someone dies, she knows. And she'll say, John has died.
That is perfect.
Yeah, it's pretty, it makes it a bit scary because the people, hiding away in the solar paneled yacht from 3 years in the future.
And they've all got their foldable LCD screen phones, but they don't work because there's no phone reception, but they can still use this walkie-talkie app so they can communicate with one another. And the anime butler communicates to them and says that thing. So they hear something like, beep, 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 and, it'll be like, whatever's died, and they'll say it. And they'll be like, fuck, he's dead, no way, how did he die? And then some people, and we've got to do lots of times where if you don't see someone die on screen, this is a trick you probably don't know about cinema, but if you don't see someone dying on screen, they technically then don't have to be dead in the story.
Interesting.
So we can have the scenes where someone's just about drinking a coconut was dry, they think for them this is their lunch break. By the way, this is not. They didn't want to be fighting a crab right now. They want to be relaxing. Can you imagine that?
They're on an island paradise. So when they shipwreck, they're like, oh wow, thank you, Lord. In 3 years, population's gone crazy.
This is our chance to
19 billion people on the earth, and this is one of civilization's last untouched islands.
Exactly.
It's literally the last untouched island in 3 years.
Shit.
It's off the coast of New Zealand. But what's very interesting is each of the cast is a celebrity.
Wait a minute. It's just saying we're going to hire famous actors to do this? Or are you saying they're celebrities in the universe of this film?
Both. They play themselves.
Yeah,
when I said John died, that was John Williams,
oh,
the composer.
Shit. Oh, my God. No, not John Williams.
They're all composers, actually. It's Hans Zimmer. He plays one.
Ennio Morricone. We get a lookalike.
Yeah. Danny Elfman.
Yep.
And he plays the saxophone. When he dies, he's playing The Simpsons, Lisa's sax solo. And then the crab, the crabs like. This is when it's revealed that the one big crab's actually thousands of little crabs, and the little crabs kind of crawl up his body.
You're talking about the famous saxophone scene, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
As they crawl up his body, these skeletons revealed, like they've eaten all his flesh off, and then he's still playing the sax for a little bit as a skeleton. And then John Williams goes, "How are you still playing sax with no lungs?" And then Danny Elfman goes, and looks down, and then just crumbles into a pile of bones.
Yeah, that's good because he's like, as far as he's concerned, he's like, he didn't notice he was so like into the sax solo.
Yeah, exactly.
He had no like. He's like, I felt something like chewing me, but like I didn't realize it had taken my entire like every inch of flesh in my body.
Yeah. Do you know what I heard? If you play saxophone as a skeleton after you die, you don't get to go to heaven.
Oh, that explains the imagery of skeletons so much in history, actually.
Yeah.
That would tie in a lot. I mean, that's a theory. It's not, we don't, because no one knows what happens when you die.
It's proven. There's 20 billion people, but the other tricky thing about civilization at the point is there's also 20 billion crabs. That's one crab per person.
Oh, the crabs. See, this is the thing: is crabs are the most resilient to climate change. This is part of the. It's like the year is 2025. Most animals have like species have become extinct.
Anime is very popular.
But one species has proven particularly resilient to the changes in ocean temperatures, and that's the crab.
As a single crab, they're probably the size of maybe a suitcase. You'd struggle to fit one in the boot of your car because it's packed. Like, you know, when you unzip the second zip and it opens up a bit more, it's like that size.
Is this 2025 cars where everyone's driving eco cars?
They're smaller cars,
much smaller. Yeah, okay,
yeah,
makes sense. And they're just made out of solar panels, I assume.
Yeah, and food is pretty like rare in the future as well. So people are a lot thinner. Like
as in like it's a rare commodity, or it's just something that's harder to. It's like there's less of it.
Well, let's say it's rationed out, and you get tickets.
I will say that.
And it's
this is going to bring a huge power to that scene where he's sipping that coconut because he's like,
yes,
it'd take 43 ration cards to get one of these back home, and he's like, they're just growing on the trees here. They're just growing on the trees, literally just growing. And this is like his 8th coconut. He's like,
yeah,
he's an indulgent. This is who's probably the most indulgent out of the composers. John Williams, that's right.
But we can change it. We can make it Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, Hans Zimmer does seem like a bit of a munchy, grubby kind of selfish person.
Do you know they're all composers except for 4? There's 4 people who aren't.
How many people are in this? By the way?
As many as we need. But these 4, each of them are the members of Kiss. Gene Simmons,
the original members. Paul Stanley.
One of them's dead, I think. Paul Stanley.
Yeah.
Ace Frehley and Peter Criss.
Okay.
But Peter Criss's name in this movie, just for this movie, is Ringo Starr. It was in his contract that.
Yeah, no, I know the story. I know, we all know the story. So is this going to be more like a Scooby-Doo situation then, where it's Kiss? Hey, it's Kiss. They rock up and they're a part of the.
Who's got money around here? Gene Simmons starts sniffing around. He's got all these Kiss stickers. He starts putting them on the coconuts, and every time he sees someone drink one of the Kiss coconuts, he charges them a fee. Yeah. It's like that's official Kiss merchandise. And every time he shits, he shits on like a banana leaf. And he holds it up and so everyone can see it and says, "Who would like some Kiss merchandise?" So they die pretty quickly in the first scene. They're the first to go.
All right, that's good. Because it's great to have them in there. Like, I'm totally down with having Kiss as much. Like, every film have a Kiss in it if you can. But I think in this film it'd be good to get rid of them in the first act.
Yeah. So the first act is they get shipwrecked. One person.
So why are they? Is it like a music convention, like a yacht or something? Like, is it or maybe it's a cruise ship, and it's a cruise ship for. Okay, so in the future, celebrities go on, because anime's replaced all forms of entertainment on screen. People, if you want to be entertained, otherwise you go on cruise ships to watch it live, like old people do. You know how they go and watch like Barry Manilow on cruise ships and stuff.
Yeah.
Except it's like all things, and because it's like this is the future, so it's our generation and our old in 2025. We're the old people, and for us, we're like, oh, remember the composers back in like 1992. Everything was so good. But all the soundtracks were the best. Have you seen Forrest Gump? Have you seen like all that kind of stuff? So we're going. This is why it's appealing to. This is why it makes sense. Obviously, it's going to be a little confusing and a little hard to explain, but we'll be able to contextualize it so people get why. The year is 2025. There's no longer anything on TV except like anime related. Content, which is fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just saying
that's the future we built for ourselves.
If people want to get a taste of what used to be, like the good old days, as they'll be called, and people will have to go onto their ships, and that's why Kiss are there too, because they'll represent the music of old that we used to love and we used to worship and we used to say was the greatest music that's ever been made and the greatest artists that existed. And the kids will be like, "Oh, that's lame, that's dumb."
Who do you think a suitable director is? I was thinking maybe Robert Zemeckis.
What did he do?
Did he do Castaway? Who did Castaway? Whoever did Castaway.
Tom Hanks. That was Tom Hanks. I've seen it. He loses all that weight.
Do you know what would be good?
He glows up. He glows up on the island, and he looks so good. He looks so sexy. He loses all that weight. Seriously, before he gets on the island, he's disgusting. He's fat. He's old, and then he like sheds all this. I'm like, oh, I'm so happy for him.
I had a good idea for this movie. It's Castaway 2. Tom Hanks doesn't get Castaway. Helen Hunt does this time.
Okay, is she in the original Castaway?
I'm pretty sure.
Is she the FedEx wife?
Yeah.
Okay.
So she's on the island with Kiss.
Was that just an ad for FedEx, that movie?
Yeah.
That's really sad.
Helen Hunt, and as her name implies, she can hunt.
And she gets fat because she's so good at hunting. She starts skinny.
Yeah.
And she's just, I'm fish, I'm num num. Or coconuts, I'm num num. Crabs, no worries.
She's the wet predator. She's the only one with a wetsuit on the island.
And they think it's crabs. The whole time you think it's crabs because you see crabs scuttling off. And the wounds you see afterwards are crabs. But that's because the crabs eat the corpses after Helen Hunt's taken out the organs with the most nutrient-rich organs, like the liver and stuff.
How do we explain the Danny Elfman getting eaten by crabs and turned into a skeleton scene?
That is a dream. That's just a dream. And we think it's real. And then he wakes up and he's like, oh, shit. That scared the shit out of me.
He pats his body and he's like, phew, I still have my flesh and blood.
Yeah, and that's just an excuse because you know for a fact Elfman's going to insist on having a saxophone scene. We'll be like, okay, you can have a saxophone scene, but it's got to be a dream scene.
Yeah, just like Peter Criss wanting to play Ringo Starr.
So, okay, you can play Ringo Starr.
But it's a dream, and you die in the first act.
And you die in the first act with Kiss, and yes.
They die in the crash in the boat. They didn't even get eaten by the crabs. They just, boat crashes, they die.
Right, so it's like the Poseidon adventure where the how long does it take for the boat to crash in that? So it's pretty quick.
It's been a while since I watched it.
Okay, so Helen Hunt, she's the hunter. Castaway 2, Helen Hunt's
dash the wet predator. The tagline is, who is the wet predator?
And that's how we're going to sell the film. Obviously in the film you don't actually no one says wet predator, no one says that, but the scenes imply it, and like, who's the wet predator? Because that creates the buzz.
Crab.
Yeah, obviously, duh, I already said that. That's the point. And the whole time everyone's like, oh, this giant crab's going, I can't wait for the giant crab scene. And they're going to be so disappointed. But then also like,
whoa, Robert Zemeckis has chops. That's what everyone's going to say. Because this script is going to be. Because
they're going to come for Sharknado and they're going to get
Helen hunting. There's a whole the whole act 2 is Helen just hunting. She leaves the main party. She's like, I'm sick to death of this anime butler. And she goes off with a harpoon gun. And there's about 45 minutes of her just in the wild. No dialogue, just her covered in mud, hunting birds, fish, other humans.
Yep.
She actually hunts John Williams because she wasn't happy with the score for Temple of Doom.
Who was? I mean, that's a gripe you got to get over, but that makes sense. That's a good motivation.
Yeah.
She go for it.
There's Act 2 done. Act 3 resolution is when you find out that Helen can hunt.
Well, they find out. So we're seeing Helen Hunt separate. Actually, I think we're going to see Helen Hunt separately doing all her thing, and we're going to assume that she's separate, but she's somehow avoiding the wet predator.
Yeah.
But then it's going to turn out she is the wet predator. But then is she going to kill everybody, or is she going to save everybody, or is there a reason?
She saves everybody.
Maybe she deliberately kills certain people we don't realize because they're the ones that caused the crash of the ship, or they're the ones that would stop them from being able to get back.
I was thinking she finds the raft that they used in Castaway.
Yeah.
She finds Tom Hanks' raft and she says, because Tom Hanks died a few years ago from, car accident.
Yeah.
And she finds the raft and she thinks that Tom Hanks is smiling down upon her. And she gets on the raft and she navigates it around the island because she's on the other end of the island.
Yeah.
Meets up with
Who's left?
But
Danny Elfman and
John
Williams dead. It's
Hans Zimmer.
Hans Zimmer. Yeah.
But they've all agreed at this point that like if anyone should go back, it should be the bodies of Kiss. So they sacrifice themselves on the island, and she goes back to Manhattan with the bodies of Kiss for a proper burial.
That's pretty good. That's really, really good.
Castaway 2, who's the wet predator? Is it Helen Hunt in a wetsuit? Or is it this giant, monstrous crab made out of 10, 20, 30,000 smaller crabs? We don't know as the viewer until the final scene when there's a question mark. It's just black and there's a white question mark. And then it says, who do you think the wet predator is? And it says, cheer if you think it's Helen Hunt. Half the crowd cheers.
And there's going to be team Hunt and team Crab.
Yeah, exactly.
And the audience is going to be split, I reckon.
But the best part
straight down the middle, 50-50. There's going to be huge Crab enthusiasts and then massive Helen Hunt stands who are going to be like, I think she's the predator. Oh, some people are going to be like, no, she would never do that. Like, come on.
The best part is there's two different endings. So you're like, I saw the movie and the crab was definitely the wet predator, and you go back, but this time you caught the wrong screening, bucko.
Yeah.
It's Helen Hunt.
And you look for all the Easter eggs along the way to give it away. Yeah. Like when one scene you see Helen Hunt, like you think, oh, she's not the wet predator because she's just hunting animals and fish and stuff.
Yeah,
but then you look back and you're like, oh wait, that scene where she was eating someone's human finger, and you're like, oh my god, I didn't notice. I should have paid attention to the finger that she was chewing on.
But in the old version, it's her sucking meat out of a crab's claw.
This is great. I think we've got it all worked out. That's wrapped up quite well.
You've been listening to So I Had This Idea, which was created by me, Anthony Frith.
And me, Joshua-Davies Thain. Thanks for listening.
And don't forget to keep the crabs away.
What, the ones that are all over my cock? Unshaved?
There's cream for that.
Oh, I'm creaming.